And I think this is the first time Crawford felt the type of heaviness that made him hesitate. But it's going to just blast. You see Crawford's hand just peels it open, just blasts through. And that's why Crawford said after the fight that he was very strong, because his guard was getting ripped through. Now, with every approach, there are pros and cons. And with the approach that I think Crawford should have taken to establish more control over this fight, there are also risks with that. I wanted him to use that lead hand more, not just a jab, but also probes and feints. The issue with that is that, of course, Madrimov is going to attempt to counter, and that cross does land over the top of Crawford's attempted parry right there. But as we're going to look at across more than a few moments in this fight, whenever Crawford was consistently jabbing, it was throwing Madrimov off. But like we just looked at, there are some issues with that. He can get countered. Now we got straight into it. We're already talking science, but hit that like button for me. Please hit that like button, subscribe. Now let's continue. Of course, one of the ways he can nullify that right hand is to circle away from it, which he was trying to do anyways. But that might also put you in trouble for the left hook, and that's why you got to have your guard up. But Crawford had a pretty decent guard at times. The problem is Madrimov is heavy handed. He was tearing through that guard, and we're going to look at some of that later on as well. As I said last night, I think the combos were a factor that separated the two when it comes to scoring, and also the jab. And the combos were a crucial point of success for Crawford. He steps in with the 2 and then lands the 3 right there. But also with the combos, he can get countered in between the exchanges. This time he's at an angle to where Madrimov can't land that left hook, so Crawford lands the right hook in the process, and it gives him that moment. One thing also, if people didn't know before, they definitely know watching. They found out watching and know now that Madrimov is not a one-dimensional fighter. I think when you look at his style, he does like a lot of jumping in, lunging, makes a lot of mistakes. But he had an underrated counterpunching game that I talked about before the fight, and he definitely showed a lot of that in this fight, and he showed he can really box at a high level. But this example that we're about to look at now is exactly what I'm talking about, the significance of the jab on Crawford's part. Not necessarily to land, but just to disrupt the rhythm, back him up. You see how Madrimov backs up, the distance is reset, and he's gonna jab again. Boom, the distance is reset. And then there's so many moments where we're gonna look at just like that that make it difficult for Madrimov to encroach into the right territory, the right range where he wants to jump in or where he wants to throw that cross. But actually, wait, there's more. He does it again. Boom, jab, throwing him off, and then he tries to enter in right there. Boom, jab, throws him off, resets him. If he was doing that more often, I think this fight could have looked a little bit different. But again, we're gonna look at some examples where Crawford is trying to throw out that lead hand, and he does get caught in the process. So it's not just clear cut, but it is something he could have relied on more. Now watch how Madrimov's body language changes once he gets into the right range where he wants to jump in. These feints get a little bit more aggressive, but again, the jab backs him up. He's not comfortable out this far. So when the jab pushes him back, he's uncomfortable, but then there's no jab there. He's going to start getting slowly closer and closer. As he gets closer and closer, these feints become more aggressive. You see how heavy he drops down into that feint, and he's doing it more often. He's doing more movement, and the movement is more drastic, and that's because he's really setting it up. You see him increasing the number of feints and the quality, and then he finally gets into the range. You see him slow down, and he's like, okay, I found it, and he jumps over with the left hook. So Crawford didn't do enough to stop Madrimov from getting into the comfortable range. Once Madrimov got into his comfortable range, he started to set up that left hook, and then he found it, and it lands clean. It's a great shot. Now look at the look on Crawford's face. He knows after he gets hit that he has to answer back, and that's why he instantly ups the aggression. He's looking to answer back. He's looking to reclaim that moment that he just lost. Cross gets blocked right there, and then he lands a swivel jab over top, and then he lands somewhat of a little bit of a hook, but it's not a great shot. The swivel jab was a better shot. Now Floyd Mayweather was a master of this, and Usyk did this very well versus Fury. It's a great way to secure rounds. And so basically the idea is, if you get hit with a good shot, you want to answer back, try and cancel out that moment. And so when Crawford was canceling out a lot of the moments, it made those rounds very close. And what would separate a lot of those rounds is the consistent jab from Crawford, which we're definitely going to look at in another round. But in this round, he didn't have too much of a consistent jab, enough to win this round. Crawford is obviously expecting an entry from Madrimov. He sees a lot of the shifting, a lot of the heavier feints, a lot of movement, and he's pretty confident Madrimov is going to do something. So he jabs to bring Madrimov out of his shell. And you see, once he jabs, he's already moving because he's expecting Madrimov to jump in. And so he gets out of the way of the cross and he tries to counter, but Madrimov gets underneath the counter. But that's another thing. The jab doesn't just serve to disrupt, it also serves to control when he comes in, so he can bait him with the jab. And Crawford did try and do that a few times, but he had trouble catching Madrimov coming in. And the reason why he had so much trouble is because Madrimov fought a very great fight. He fought almost exactly the type of fight he was supposed to fight. He was very patient, very measured. He didn't do a lot of the wild stuff that we're used to seeing because he had a lot of respect for Crawford's counterpunching ability. And so he fought a great fight, and that's what made it so difficult for Crawford, because he wasn't able to bring him out of his shell. Crawford jabs, and as he jabs, he circles away from that right hand because he knows that that right hand is often coming in response to the jab, or at least at times. So it's coming with enough frequency to make him circle away from the right hand. And Madrimov knows this, and so he cuts that off and circles in with that lead uppercut, which is a great shot as well. Now here we're going to see one of the key elements of Madrimov's style. Steps in with the jab, feints, level change, cross to the body, and the cross to the body doesn't land, but it's about what the level changes set up. Here's what it sets up. Crawford jabs, he level changes, boom, gets the shot up top, and he also gets underneath the potential counter that Crawford was throwing right there. That's how Madrimov was able to land such big shots. He's able to level change body, and then boom, brings it up top to the head. Very similar here. You see that jab already extended. It's not meant to land, it's meant to bring the guard up, and then he level changes and gets that overhand around the guard. Not a super clean shot, but it lands nonetheless. Very similar setup to the last one. In this round, Madrimov wins pretty cleanly. I think he lands most of the heavier, cleaner, harder shots. That was the 5th round, by the way. Now we're looking at the 11th. Crawford has some success coming forward, but as the aggressor, it also opened up more opportunities for Madrimov to catch him. Madrimov sees him closing the distance. He sees Crawford approaching him, and so he times him right there. Nice cross. And Bud didn't do too much to change the positioning and get any positional advantages. So that's why Madrimov was so often able to land that cross, because Bud didn't do too much with his feet to avoid it. Again, Crawford realizes he has to answer back, and that's what he does. Throws a combo. The 4 kind of lands, not that much of a heavy shot, and then the swivel jab also lands, not a super heavy shot, but they're 2 solid shots that probably make up for that heavier cross. Look at what the jab does from Crawford, and it doesn't have to land. That one does land, but it doesn't have to. Reset, back him up, reset, back him up. And we're about to look at another example. Here's an even better example. The feint of the jab, the threat of the jab backs him up, and then he's still extending that lead hand, still controlling him. He touches him, and he's moving him around the ring using the lead hand, and he's also subsequently stopping Madrimov from finding his rhythm, because Madrimov is more focused on escaping or getting out of the way than he is on standing in front of him and finding his rhythm and finding the range. And it's obvious that this is the case, because when he stops, what does Madrimov do? Madrimov starts level changing, starts bouncing, he starts getting in his bag, and Bud jabs. And again, you can tell Bud is expecting something, because when he jabs, he's circling out. He's ready for that potential counter, gets underneath it, although he does get a little bit of an edge up right there. He gets lined up a little bit, he gets a little bit of a fade up the side of his head, but it's not that much of a heavy shot. And that's why he's able to immediately come back with some counter body shots. Here, Crawford actually does to Madrimov what Madrimov has been doing to him. Times that lead hand extension with his own counter cross, except his counter cross misses, but he follows up with the swivel jab. That's a heavy shot, one of his heavier shots so far. I think the vision of Crawford actually allows him to make this mini adjustment right here. And I think so because look how Crawford pays attention to Madrimov's defense. Crawford jabs, and then he's looking down. He sees that Madrimov ducked down to get away from that jab, kind of like a little bit of a swivel jab to it, like a little bit he turned into it. And so he sees that Madrimov ducked down, and so the next time he jabs, Madrimov is going to duck down again, but this time he follows him down with kind of a four that's angled downward, and that four lands clean. It's a pretty good shot as well. Out anything to control the space between them. So you see Madrimov up in the feints, finding his rhythm, and he just did that little slip feint to his left side, Madrimov's left side. And of course, the next time he's going to do that, he does it again. He's testing the waters with that feint. Madrimov, that's what I say. Madrimov does a lot of movement, but within that, there's a lot of purpose. Some people may say it's unnecessary, and some of it is, but some of it definitely is not. And the next time he dips to that left side, it sets up that lead hook, and it doesn't land super clean, but it does land. Again, Crawford answering back as they separated. He may have landed that body shot. From what I remember, I don't think it landed too clean, but he does land a hard jab on the ear that knocks Madrimov off balance. So they're going back and forth. Crawford is making sure that he answers back just about everything that Madrimov is landing on him. And in between the moments that aren't highlighted here, Crawford is consistently landing some jabs. Again, I love to highlight the advantage of frame by frame. Crawford throws this cross, but you can see that it just barely misses. But if you're watching it live, you would think that that landed. And there's some moments like that for Madrimov as well. But I just like to highlight the significance of frame by frame, allowing a more detailed look at these moments. Crawford steps in, tries to throw the four, doesn't really land, but he does get this swivel jab again that blasts through the guard of Madrimov, and Madrimov lands a decent shot that lands mostly on the forehead with like the bottom, like pinky knuckles and stuff. But regardless, it lands, and then Crawford throws a body shot to answer back. Madrimov likes to catch and counter the lead hand attacks of Crawford, and we saw him doing it at times with the jab, but even more so with the lead hook, because it's not as fast and sharp as a jab. So he lets that left hand, that's my right hand, he lets his left hand catch the lead hook of Crawford, and then he tries to throw the cross as Crawford is there in front of him, but Crawford actually gets his left hand there in time to just barely parry that out of the way. Now, it's moments like this that actually make this performance more impressive to me on Crawford's part. And I have to highlight this similar to how I highlighted the same dynamic in Fury versus Usyk. Crawford is standing in front of Madrimov in equal positioning, so he kind of in line for the cross. He throws out a jab, and as Madrimov has shown the tendency to do, he responds with the cross. And now you see Crawford's guard, boom, catch that on the wrist. And so it mostly, if it does land, it lands really on the chest, because you see Crawford's chin is way over here and his guard is over here, and the punch lands on his guard. But regardless, Madrimov's hands are so heavy that it just blasts through Crawford's guard, and it shakes his whole body, and it makes it look like the shot land. And it's not that Madrimov isn't throwing impactful shots that also land. It's just that the weight class advantage is definitely showing itself. And Crawford also has power at 154. It's just the heaviness of these 154 pounders is going to be an issue. And it was an issue that night. And you can see it across the fight with how many times Madrimov splits Crawford's guard. And that's why Crawford said after the fight that he was very strong, because his guard was getting ripped through. And we're about to look at some more examples. And in fact, here's a couple of good examples packed together in one. For one, he throws this probe. That's not even a jab. He's just probing at the guard, and you see it completely rearrange and mangle Crawford's guard, and it opens it up just with that. And then Madrimov he makes a great move right here where he level changes with Crawford and times him with a great cross. That was a great move from Madrimov. And then Crawford puts up his guard, and the next cross Madrimov throws is going to just blast. You see Crawford's hand just peels it open, just blasts through. Again, that's why Crawford said after the fight, he's like, yeah, he was very strong, because those punches was just boom. Crawford was getting some work put on him. And I think this is the first time Crawford felt the type of heaviness that made him hesitate, because his guard was being ripped through. Normally what makes Crawford hesitate is someone with the speed to get to him, a Gamboa, a Porter. That's why he said that those are very difficult fights, because of the speed. Here, the speed was somewhat of an issue, but it was also just the heaviness of Madrimov. And again, Bud is going to throw out that jab, expecting Madrimov to come in, and that's why he's already in a position right there, and then Madrimov does come in. He comes in with a lead uppercut, and then Bud tries to counter it, but that lands on the arms. But he does catch him on the exit with the hook. Bud trying to close the distance, but he's standing right in front of him. Madrimov with great timing catches him with a clean cross. Bud answers back with a cross of his own, but it's not as impactful as Madrimov's. Bud closing out the round with a combo, steps in, throws the cross, boom, nice swivel jab that gets through the guard. Bud's swivel jab was nasty this fight. It was one of his cleaner shots. Yeah, he ends the round with a combo. The 4 doesn't land. The cross did land pretty clean, and the swivel jab was the heavier shot. But it's the combos. Again, combos. For Madrimov, the key was to counter Bud's entry, stay in equal positioning, line that cross up, and try and intercept Bud. And he did good doing that during this fight, obviously, which is why the fight was so close. And also work off of the level changes. Those were the keys for Madrimov. For Bud, more jabs, more combos, and he should have used his feet more to create angles. But yeah, this is a very close round also. However, Bud had more success early on, and then Madrimov had more success late on, but then Bud had the combos, and then on top of that, Bud had the jabs that, you know, secured this round in his favor. And so the jabs secured this round. Yeah, so that's just a look at 2 rounds, and we'll look at some more stuff later down the line. But I think we're going to move into looking at some of the undercard, because there's a lot of fights that I want to take a look at, especially Bacoli. I got a lot to say about Bacoli versus Anderson. So stick around, notification bell. I will see y'all later.